Его не слышу. Давайте проверим звук. Это говорит...
Просто у всех выключен звук.
Good afternoon. We are going to start. Have you any problems with connection?
Not from my side. I'm Tony Caro in Spain.
Tony, I'm glad to see you here very much.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Yes, I am Vladimir Penevolensky from the Higher School of Economics in Moscow, and I can hear and see everyone quite well.
Thank you.
For me, also, everything's fine.
Okay. Dear colleagues, let's start. Good afternoon. I am very glad to welcome all the participants and guests of the first session of the regular international workshop, Contemporary Social Challenges, Actualization of Global and Regional Social Practices. Let me introduce myself. My name is Olga Tretyakova. I'm the head of the editorial department, and I will moderate our meeting today. The workshop is organized by the Vologda Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences and the European School of Social Innovation. Our partnership with the managing director of the SC, Antonia Schroeder, and his team began in 2012 when they visited Vologda. Since 2014, we have been working on the project Social Innovation, Driving Force of Social Change. It is great that our collaboration continues after project. We have published some papers in academic journals and taken part in the essay workshop, conferences, and summer schools. In September 2018, we conducted the essay working group, Social Innovation, Progressive Concept and Implications for Regional Development in Vologda. Nowadays, we recognize that we are ready to share our best practices with others. It is important to develop this research area for the European School of Social Innovation and the Vologda Research Center. Today, we have 9 reports. I would like to welcome the speakers from Germany, the TU Dortmund University, from Spain, the University of Deusto, from Moscow, High School of Economics, Ekaterinburg, the Institute of Economics of the Ural branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and the Vologda Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences. It gives me great pleasure to recognize the director of the Vologda Research Center, Doctor of Economics, Alexandra Shabunova, for her words of welcome.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I am glad to welcome you here. We hope the reports will be interesting to you. We are glad that our colleagues from Russia and Europe take part in our event. I hope we will have a fruitful discussion and our workshop will become regular.
Thank you, Alexandra Anatolievna. We would like to welcome our speaker and expert from Germany, senior researcher and member of management board of the Social Research Center at the Technical University of Dortmund, Managing Director of the European School of Social Innovation, Antonius Schroeder. Antonius, will you?
Yes, thank you very much, Olga and Alexandra. It's a pleasure to be here in the conference of the Vologda Research Center. Usually I would have visited Vologda a third time, I think, for this meeting, but you all know what is happening in the world. Yes, so thanks a lot, and also for the introduction. Our cooperation started before the my first visit in Vologda, so it started at about 2010 and so on. So we worked together on proposals and looked for cooperation. I have to say that Vologda Research Center is a very important institutional member of the European School of Social Innovation, and cooperating with the Vologda Research Center more than 10 years now in common projects, in conferences, in the series of biannual ESSI conferences as well. But a very important step for getting a closer cooperation was the SI Drive project, which is the social innovation driving force of social change, where Vologda Research Center was a very, very important partner for this international and, in my view, groundbreaking project on pushing social innovation on the agenda all over the world. And so together we are working together to in common activities to push social innovation much further. And you will hear later some things, some new impressions or messages from my side. Last thing I have to say, when I visited Vologda, I was 2 times, I was very, very impressed by the social innovation activities already in place in Vologda and in the region. So I had the chance to visit very different things for let's say childcare, but also new digital companies, etc. So a broad range of social innovation activities, and I think that's also the honor of the Vologda Research Center to push these things in the region and let's say in Russia in general. So first, thank you very much, and I will come back later.
Thank you very much, Antonius. I would like to introduce the coordinators of our workshop from the Vologda Research Center, Academic Secretary Tatiana Sokolova and leading researcher Galina Leonidova.
Liebe Kollegen, Antonius, Michael, Antonia, ich freue mich sehr, Sie begrüßen und danke schön, dass Sie alle hier an unserem ersten Maßnahme zur sozialen Thematik teilnehmen konnten. Ich möchte Ihnen auch danken, dass die Europäische Schule von sozialen Innovationen hat unsere Idee für diesen Workshop unterstützt. Das ist sehr wichtig für uns und ich glaube, dass die heutige Arbeit von diesem Workshop wird sehr produktiv, interessant und erfolgreich. Dankeschön. Ich wünsche Ihnen erfolgreiche Arbeit.
Thank you. And Galina Leonidova.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. As a coordinator of our meeting, I would like to welcome all of you here. I hope we will have a challenging and active discussion today. Wish you luck and success. Thank you.
And let me introduce Svetlana Terebova, one of the first participants of the project C-Drive and the director of our private department.
Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'm very glad to see you, and especially Tony. And I wish the participants at the conference fruitful discussions and great results.
Thank you very much. And dear colleagues, let me say some words about informational support of our workshop. The supporting journal of our event is Economic and Social Changes, Fact, Trends, Forecast. Several papers devoted to different problems of social innovations were published in that journal during last years. So I would like to introduce it to you. Economic and Social Changes, Facts, Trends, Forecast is published by the Vologda Research Center of RAS. It is a peer-reviewed academic journal which covers issues related to the analysis and forecast of changes in economics and social sphere in various territories. The journal is published in Russian and English. It is covered by the Emergent Sources Citation Index, which is the part of the Web of Science co-collection database. I would like to mention that the journal is an official partner of the European School of Social Innovation. Main research areas of the journal are social and economic development, regional economics, theoretical issues, global experience, sectoral and innovation economics, and environmental economics. Social innovation problems are presented in the various papers in the journal. Among them, there are regional, theoretical, and empirical studies. Regional studies concern the development of social innovation in Russia, the European Union, Turkey, and China. We discuss such theoretical issues as institutional mechanism for shaping social innovation, actor approach in social innovation studies, ecosystem of social innovation. Also, the results of some empirical studies were published. For example, we discussed different problems of social entrepreneurship, workplace innovation, social innovation and education in a rural environment, and so on. You can see several papers devoted to social innovation issues on the slides. I'd like to mention that today we can see some of the authors here among our speakers: Antonia Schroeder, Alexandra Shabunova, Antonia, Cara, Gonzalez, and Andrei Popov. And this year, they are going to continue discussing social innovation issues in the journal. And we are planning to publish some papers. First of all, we want to publish the overview report of the first session of this regular international workshop, Contemporary Social Challenges. So we would like to ask you to prepare the abstracts of your reports up to 300 words. We would be grateful to you for sending them to us till the 25th of May. And we are going to prepare the overview report and publish it in the end of June. Also, we are going to publish this series of research papers. We will focus on the problems of social innovation ecosystems, technological and social innovation and transformation during the pandemic, and social entrepreneurship development. We are planning to publish these papers in the following journal sections: social and economic development and global experience. We would like to ask you to develop your reports to the articles. And but I should mention that there is a double-blind peer review process in the journal. So please follow the author guidelines, and there is a link on this slide, and all the publications are free of charge. We are ready to publish several articles in the upcoming issues in August and in October. So we would like to ask you to submit the papers till the 25th of June. It's the first deadline, or till the 25th of August. Thank you for your attention. You will be pleased, we will be pleased to see you among the authors of our journal. And before we start our main reports, I would like to ask you to follow the time limits. 10-15 minutes for the reports and 5-10 minutes for discussion. And let's start. We are going to discuss several issues related to social challenges which affect the population and country's development. We will focus on the modern phenomena of social innovation. Nowadays, social innovation is often used as an effective tool in solving the burning issues of society and overcoming their negative consequences. This area has been studied within CDRIVE project, which became the starting point for the long-lasting cooperation between the Vologda Research Center and the TU Dortmund University. And I would like to welcome our first speaker, Antonia Schroeder.
Yes, thank you, Olga, for this introduction. I will upload my presentation, but before starting, my heartily greetings to Josef Hochgerner, our former scientific director of the European School. Thank you for joining us. Let's see if I could stick to the 15 minutes. I will do my very best to manage it. Let me just put it on full screen. Yeah, okay. So my theme is combining technological and social innovation. So it's a part of social innovation, but I think in these days a very, very important part. I try to convince the engineers and technicians not to forget the social perspective in innovation. And I will tell you in which way I do it. So the European Commission is always talking about the twin transition, which is green and digital transition. But from my point of view, and for our point of view, the social aspect has to be embedded as well. So I always say that every technological or economical innovation is also a social innovation process. So, and technology has to be an enabler of innovation. Maybe I could make my laser enabler of innovation. And for instance, Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, said, every technological innovation is made by people for people. So therefore, digital and green transformation is also a change of what we call in social innovation, social practices. So Industry 5.0, there is a discussion you see here. It's a new policy paper of the European Commission, is focusing on a sustainable, human-centric and resilient European industry with the topic, the message, technology has to serve people. And thanks to Toni Caro and her team, we are engaged also in a triple transition policy paper, which you can see here. And I think Antonia Caro will tell something about it later as well. Yes, combining technological and social innovation is stakeholder and user involvement in a co-creation process, considering impact, organizational and personal development right from the beginning. So it's the mission is, from my side, is very clear. Every technological innovation has to take into account non-technological elements, the innovation process by co-creation, user, worker involvement, but also empowerment of citizens and cross-sectoral collaboration, and combining economic, social, technological, and environmental impact together under the slogan, bringing technology into society. I'm engaged, for instance, in the SPIRE roadmap, where a new program in Europe is set up for processes for planet. And every innovation program has to integrate non-technological aspects, like framework conditions, market consumers, but also skills and human resources. Yes, Industry 5.0, that's a brand new discussion, and I think this will come up more and more. It's completing Industry 5.0, the primarily technological and economic oriented Industry 4.0, focused by human-centric, sustainability and resilient aspects. And I don't go through it in detail, you can read it later in the slides. So it's about changing social practices in the sense of social innovation. So not only to integrate or to implement a new technology is relevant, but to change, let's say, the role of workers, to find a new work division between human and machine, and to integrate training in the beginning with proactive skills adjustments, etc. I'm not talking about this from a theoretical perspective. We have a very deep empirical background on combining technological and social innovation. You can find more information about these projects I put in the home pages as well, and I will come back to one and some more projects during my presentation. Yes, one point is the digitalization of production processes. So we always say that it has to be planned as a social innovation process in the beginning. So co-creation, joint development with people and stakeholders, etc., not only to ensure the acceptance and to generate learning processes, but to unfold the whole potential of the technology. We did it in the COCO project, which is the integration of a software for optimizing the production process across 4 different production stages. And it is about RoboHash, which is a human-machine interaction from former manual activities to a new division of work between an assistant robot and the operators in the steel industry. Both projects were in the steel industry. So RoboHash, we started, it's about, let's say, heavyweight and hazardous activities for the maintenance of a converter ladle. And there were 39 operator tasks identified. And now, after the installation of the robot, 31 are done by the robot, and only 8 of them are remaining manually outside. And it changed the role from the operator to a supervisor in the pulpit of the robot. You can see the robot here. So totally changed, and it worked because the operators were integrated in the development process right from the beginning. The same we did in the COCO project of the optimization system. So we had different methods to integrate the operator and stakeholder perspective. We made an analysis of the involved persons in the organizational flowchart. We looked at social KPIs, key performance indicators, not only at technological indicators. We had interviews with the workers and also a questionnaire about it, so that we could reflect their perspective very intensively in the process. But let me now finally draw your attention to the European Sectoral Skills Alliances. So in the Beyond 4.0 project, my colleague Michael will maybe tell you something about this a bit later. It came out that sectors and regions are relevant mediators for education 4.0 skills policy related to Industry 4.0. And therefore, the European Commission launched within the European New Skills Agenda more than 20 sectoral skills alliances. And we are engaged in the Steel Industry Skills Alliance and in the Industrial Symbiosis Skills Alliance. You see the others here as well. So in the Steel Skills Alliance, it's about 24 partners and 16 associated partners. We have 4 million euros and 4-year time to set up this Skills Alliance and strategy. And in Aspire Size, which is the Skills Alliance for Industrial Symbiosis, we focus, we have almost the same conditions, 24 partners and 11 associated partners, but it's different. It's a cross-sectoral approach covering 8 different energy-intensive industry sectors. Steel is one, but there are also some others. So how do we do it as a social innovation process? We have a multi-stakeholder approach. So science and research, business, education and training, and also politics, very important, are part of these projects. So the associations, the industry associations and social partners are engaged in these projects. So what do we want to do together? With the industry, for the industry, we want to develop an industry-driven proactive adjustment of future skills, as I said, with the industry and for the industry. And the main point is to adjust the workforce proactively. So we have a skills forecast and a technology forecast, which we are using. This is just to show you what kind of elements are relevant, what we have for these 2 blueprints. So as I said, technological and economic demands, skills adjustment, we have strategies and measures, very important alliances and new leadership and implementation and rollout. In this way, we set up these skills alliances. Yes, concretely, what do we do in, for instance, in the ESSA project, which is now in the 3rd year? We set up a European Technology and Skills Foresight Observatory using a regular panel asking the industry about the recent status of technology and skills demands. We have an online training ecosystem with training measures and offers as an exchange platform. And we are looking on the regional level for regional training ecosystems as well. So this is in the heart of this ESSA blueprint, the online training system, we call it Steel Hub. So we integrate the elements of the associations, the industry associations and so on. We integrate the company and industry skills requirement. We integrate other blueprints. We integrate the VET system, exchange with the VET system, but also focus on individuals, on informal and non-formal training, and integrate also other European tools. And as I said, it's important to have a kind of rollout. Therefore, we use the existing partners we have on the European level, but we break everything down on the regional level where people live, learn, and work, integrating companies, training providers, research, trade unions, etc. Yes, that's from my side. I hope I was not too long. In my view, I have 2 minutes. I finished 2 minutes before my schedule. So thank you very much for your attention. And as I said, there are some information in the slides. You can have deeper insights in the projects. And I'm also at your disposal for questions and remarks.
Antonia, thank you very much for your excellent report. And have you any questions?
Okay, Tony, am I understand right that technological innovations will not be social without some additional measures? I mean, to fulfill the social potential of technological innovations, we should overcome some additional goals, some steps. What do you think about it?
Yes, it's from a more general perspective. It's very important, in my view, to implement not only technological key performance indicators, but also social key performance indicators. That's one point. And another discussion we have is, if I got it right, your question right, is that there is a big orientation on the technological readiness levels. So there are 9 different readiness levels for technology, but we add as well social readiness, societal readiness levels to integrate also the implementation of technologies or other innovations in society from the start, let's say from the idea up to the institutionalization and integration into everyday life.
So that's why any technological innovation could be social, yep?
Yeah, for sure. Not only could, my view is they are.
Oh.
And it is decisive for failure and success to integrate this in a social innovation process. Otherwise, let's say a lot of for instance, economic, but also technological innovation are never implemented, although they might be very good. But it's not integrated, integrated in a social perspective, and that's from my view very, very important, and not only an add-on, but necessary to do it.
That's clear. Thank you.
May I have another question? My name is Natalia Ivanova, a senior researcher. Higher School of Economics, Moscow. Dear Dr. Schroeder, along the same lines of the previous question, would you be, please, a little bit more specific, describing potential social challenges of implementing technological innovations, like perhaps the reduction of workplaces due to technological progress or things like that? Do you anticipate them and do you count them as part of the technological processes?
Yes, for sure. So it means that considering impact from the beginning is not only concentrated on, let's say, the workplace, for instance, but also on the societal impact, job losses, etc. But for instance, in the two projects of the Skills Alliances I'm coordinating, we found out that the technological let's say, innovation and development is more incremental than disruptive in the production process areas, but but there are other sectors where job losses and all these things are much more important. The process industry is very much automated now already, so that's not a real problem or a disruptive change there. But Michael is working in the Beyond 4.0 project. Maybe he can add some information about this later, because the focus there is very much on societal impact concerning also job losses and job creation and all these things.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Vladimir, I see you have a question.
Yes, I would like to basically follow up the question of my colleague, Professor Schroeder. Do you think, or has your research produced some evidence that technological innovation, which is also beneficial, let's say profitable in economic terms, that this kind of innovation can be stopped if there are detrimental societal consequences?
Yeah. Yes, that's a very important question concerning the process, the innovation process. And if I got it right, there is always, let's say, reflection on the concerning the impact of the development. For instance, in developing, let's say, a software which is not feeding into the expectations of the workers and the users, so it could be changed. In one project, we developed, for instance, a greening technical vet training module, and we planned it as an e-learning tool. And during the course of the project, all the apprentices and workers said, well, e-learning is boring, we don't want it, we want more an action tool. And so we developed something different. And so it's from an economic perspective, it's very important to integrate this feedback and this experience and know-how to develop the innovation and the technology, and not develop a technology and then you have to adjust them, or you could put it away and so on. So from an economical perspective, let's say it's maybe the first part of the development process is much more extensive and expensive. but the follow-up costs are very low, and the risk of implementing and developing something which is not used is reduced very extensively.
Okay, thank you.
Dear colleagues, thanks a lot. We have one more question. Will you please?
If it's me, I couldn't resist raise my hand. Josef Hochkammer, Center for Social Innovation, Vienna, and European School. Tony, I'm impressed by the scope and how to say, intensity and range of projects you presented. What I would like to mention is that I have a slightly different view on the relationship between social innovations and technological innovations. In particular, in the Center for Social Innovation, we run a slogan since, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, saying all innovations are socially relevant. That means not any innovation is also a social innovation, but technological innovations may have social consequences. And this is very much to the just previously raised question. What about the impacts that are not welcome socially? So I think this should be taken into account, and you take it into account by pointing to the social key performance indicators, as you mentioned them. Because being socially innovative means that there is a change in social practices, there's a change in social action. And if we would like to be a bit visionary, it is to contribute to social progress. And social progress towards digital, green, and social is a very important point, a very important perspective. And I hope that all these projects and the ideas created by these workshops and in many others would contribute to that. But the main question, it boils down again to the question, how do we measure the social impact of social innovation?
Yes, you are totally right from a, let's say, from a macro level perspective. I think that's quite clear. All the projects listed are very, let's say, concrete, specific developments. And what I can say is that during the course of the development and integrating it as a social development or innovation process, that people have a choice to choose different, let's say, organizational models and so on, also the managers. But in this perspective, let's say we are, let's say, much more on a concrete development level and not at the macro societal national level. This is very much more the part of the Beyond for Zero project where Michael is engaged in. And I also have to say that the work I only can get, let's say, the industry to open for the social component, let's say it like this, by not using a normative definition of social innovation in any way. So then they stop working and are not on board. Yeah, but it's an important point.
Dear colleagues, thank you for your questions. Antonius, thank you very much for your comments. And we speak a lot about digitalization. And the massive digitalization of society is one of the modern social challenges. Deputy Director of the Vologda Research Center, Lyubov Babic, will present research results concerning the educational sphere and smart competencies.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking you all for being here. I'm delighted to be here too. My presentation aims to propose a model for the formation of smart competencies. To start with, I'll point out how it follows our workshop agenda, and then I'll directly move on to the model and also present some results of my research team. Okay, let's start. Modern societies across the globe are facing new challenges rising from the space of technological progress and globalization. On the other hand, we are seeing progress, growing environmental awareness, innovation, and optimism, and on the other, continuously growing negative impacts of expanding human systems with its growing population, increasing global inequality, and fundamental failures in economic systems. Additionally, these societies now have a vast and continuous information stream at their disposal. As a result, we all need for a more sustainable world from global to local levels. And as we all know, it was acknowledged by United Nations members in September 2015 when 17 Sustainable Development Goals were set. Education is placed at the center of Sustainable Development Agenda and has been widely recognized as a key enabler of sustainable development and an integral element of quality education. ESD has a long history and emerged out of a number of global discourses aimed at addressing the key sustainability challenges of the time. I won't dwell on theoretical aspects. I only note that the concept of ESD has evolved around key competencies and themes. It aims to develop competencies that enable individuals to reflect on their own actions by taking into account their current and future social, cultural, economic, and environmental impacts from local and the global perspective. The development of these competencies is an essential contribution to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. But ESD equips individuals not only with the knowledge to understand the sustainable goals, but also with competencies to engage as informed citizens in promoting transformations to a more sustainable society. Nowadays, an increasing number of researchers are examining the many interconnecting aspects of ESD and their associated competencies. Between them, that outline key competencies essential for individuals to transform their own lifestyles and to contribute to societal transformation towards sustainability. While this list exhibits certain differences, they also coincide within a number of key sustainability competencies. And I should point out there is general agreement with the international ESD discourse that the key sustainability competencies are of particular importance for thinking and acting in favor of sustainable development. You see them on the slide. They are worked by UNESCO. Moving on to our next slide and try to answer the question, and who must foster the development of key sustainability competencies? We think all educational institutions ranging from preschool to tertiary education and including both non-formal and informal education should consider it as their responsibility. On these institutes at local level, one of these institutes at the local level, we see a research and educational center at Vologda Research Center. It has been actively working with school children for more than 15 years in the framework of non-formal education. In 2019, research team of the center started the project Smart Education as the vector for the development of the human potential of the younger generation. The project has developed a model for the formation of smart competencies. And now let me give a brief overview of it. And if we have a look at the slide, we can see this model. First, I have to say that we consider smart competencies as skills of the future formed in response to the challenges of the time through the complex interaction of traditional and innovative educational forms and practices. Smart competencies, understood in this way, are fully associated with key sustainability competencies. You can see them in the inner circle of the model. For example, creativity, research literacy, digital literacy, teamwork skills, value-based attitude to technology. The outer circle of the model includes clusters: smart environment and its tools, smart conditions, smart principles, objects of meta-influence. Formation of smart competencies occurs due to the interaction of these clusters in the smart learning process, which combines all existing pedagogical and psychological theories with the practice of using information technologies. And the model is based on this smart learning process. It's equally important to see how this conceptual model works, and that will bring us to our next point. We are going to conduct an experiment. It will be carried out in 3 stages. To participate in the experiment, we identified 3 groups of students who study at our scientific and educational center. Students in the first group will not receive a formative influence during the experiment. In the second group, there are students who will receive experimental influence in the classroom. And in the third, students who will receive experimental influence online by the internet. Here I draw your attention to the fact that this is a non-formal education. So at the first stage, we carry out measurements and determine the competencies level of the test subjects. And the second stage, we involve only experimental group. They will receive an experimental influence. At the third, control stage, we'll measure the competence level again and determine in which environment they are formed better, in a controlled, specially created, or uncontrolled, in free development environment. Let's now turn to measurements. For this purpose, we've developed a diagnostic test which consists of several thematic blocks. If we have a look at the table, we'll see them, these blocks. Thus, the test contains questions for self-assessment by the test subjects: digital literacy, financial literacy, research competencies, communicative competencies, and organizational skills. There are thematical blocks. Being limited in time, I briefly say that during the interpretation, self-assessment data are digitized in the form of indices and clustered according to the levels. We have identified 3 possible levels: basic, autonomous, and strategic. The basic level is sufficient to participate in the learning process, while students may experience difficulties in performing various educational tasks and in communicating with others. Autonomous level, here the child can independently perform educational tasks, use software, use basic financial products, establish casual relationship without outside help, and situationally show the need for communication. At the strategic level, it reflects the ability to influence peers, set ambitious goals and achieve them, easily adapt to conditions of the modern world. Moving on to the next slide, I have to say that the first stage has completed this year, and we measured the starting level of smart competencies in all groups of subjects. As you can see on the slide, starting opportunities in all groups turned out to be approximately the same, and this will allow us to draw informed conclusions in the future. We expect that the provided formative influence will allow the experimental group to achieve a strategic level of smart competencies in contrast to all others. That means that only about 6% of test subjects possess strategic level of these competencies, and we would like the more percent of the subjects will have this level, will reach this level. I'd like to conclude by saying that the presented social practice can be used as a guidance for those who promotes education for sustainable development. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have questions, please, I will answer.
Dear colleagues, we need to follow our time limits. That's why 1 or 2 short questions, please.
One question, please. What was the age range of your students?
Thank you very much for the question. There are students, just a moment, I will see. Aged, among the subjects, there will be students aged 15, 16 years, from 9 and 10.
Ah, I see. Thanks. Mm-hmm.
And Antonius, please.
Yeah, yes, one short question. Could you please remind me why the strategic skills are so important from your perspective in relation to autonomy, for instance?
Just a moment.
It was one of your last
strategic level. At the strategic level, students can to influence peers, set ambitious goals and achieve them, and early adapt to the conditions of the modern society, modern world. They can be, they can adopt to the modern society.
Okay, so from this perspective, you want to increase this level of strategic skills as well. Yeah, thanks a lot.
And the topics of digitalization will continue our colleagues from the High School of Economics, Irina Mirsyanova, Natalia Ivanova, and Alexandra Bruchno. Will you please?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I will start the report, and my colleague Alexandra Bruchno, she will help me first demonstrating the presentation itself and then continuing the factual side of the issue. So, dear colleagues, our study has been guided by a concept of integrated technological and social innovation, which draws quite significantly on the paper on the new innovation paradigm, actually co-authored by one of our esteemed key speakers, Dr. Antonia Schroeder. And we, based on this concept, we summed up the key elements of the new innovation paradigm that form the conceptual framework for our own study. Actually, the point is that the new innovation paradigm combines technological development with the concept of social innovation and views both technological development and social innovation as mutually dependent, complementary, mutually integrated, rather than conflicting and competing. And then if we look at the digitalization framed within this paradigm, that means, the digitalization would mean both optimizing the system of organizational processes and a change in the mindset of those who are engaged in these processes, rather than just introducing some technological improvements or advancements in separate subsystems or operations. Actually, that was the summary of the essential points of the paper referred to just a few moments earlier, that we found very relevant to our own research in the nonprofit field, although the paper actually initially had to do with the case of steel industry, well, industrial case in point, but we find it really very, very relevant to the nonprofit sector issues. And actually, our study presents Russia's first NGO digital skills index as a tool for measuring a specific aspect of integrated social and technological innovation in the nonprofit sector. And it's significant and very indicative of the demand of the time that the issue of measuring the impact of social innovation has already been raised today during our discussion by our colleagues from Germany. And it's really important. So our study is about testing a tool for a specific, really specific tool, which is NGO Digital Skill Index, for measuring the degree of social innovation, social and technological blend of innovation in the nonprofit sector. We have based our study on a thorough analysis of international experience. And international experience shows us, first, that that NGO digital indices are relatively few as compared to multiple digital indices for commercial firms, as well as the national, regional, and cross-national indices of digital competencies the world over. And for the most part, they are adapted from the relevant indices for the business sector. The indicators and metrics frameworks also derive from the business sector realities. Russia's NGO digital index was designed specifically for the nonprofit sector. And interestingly, it allowed for a comparative analysis of the data received at the point of entry into the pandemic, the data of 2019, and the data from the period, say, over a year after the outbreak of the pandemic, the data for this year's data for the 2021. In the meantime, we came across numerous expert evaluations and media reports showcasing positive and significant progress in the digitalization of the Russian nonprofit sector in the time of the pandemic. So we hypothesized that our data could indicate a significant and noticeable growth and improvement in the NGO nonprofit sector digital capacities. So that was our hypothesis. However, it didn't hold. The data didn't support this hypothesis. And on the contrary, we found out that Russian NGO overall demonstrate a fairly low level of digital skills. That is less than 2 scores out of the possible 10. And even more so, the pandemic revealed a kind of polarized perspective in the digitalization of the NGO sector. Nonprofits that had widely used information technologies before the pandemic succeeded in mastering new digital tools during the pandemic and actually demonstrated the highest level of the digital capacity, while NGOs that hadn't been interested in going digital before the pandemic were not motivated to start going digital during the pandemic. And so contrary to the prevailing perception of the pandemic's overall catalyzing influence on third sector digitalization, our data point to the polarization effect, kind of polarizing effect in widening the gap between digitally advanced and digitally passive nonprofits. So a question for further research is how to enhance the diagnostic measurement potential of our NGO Digital Skills Index as a tool for measuring social change, so that it could help identify factors and conditions that facilitate the transition from digitally less capable to a higher level of digital capacity. And now I would like to turn the floor over to my colleague, Alexandra Bruchno, to present an overview of our data analysis. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. To create our digital skills index, we used the data from All Russian representative face-to-face survey of NGO leaders. And as you can see on the slide, our index consists of 4 sub-indices in line with the basic functions of digital technologies in NGOs. These functions are dissemination of information via the internet or digital presence, relationship building and communication with target audience or digital communications, digital fundraising, which is self-explanatory, and improving management and work efficiency or digital workplace. These 4 variables were assessed on the 10-point scale in proportion to the number of digital tools used by an NGO to perform these functions. Basic Digital Skills Index in total is an average score between all 4 sub-indices. Thus, the index describes the width of the NGO's digital toolbox. As you can see, the average values for all areas of digital competence are pretty low, both before the pandemic and more than a year after its outbreak. There is a slight increase in 2021, although the changes are not even between the sub-indices. So let us talk a bit about these sub-indices then. The most developed sphere in both periods was digital communications, communication with the target audiences of the NGOs. The average value is 2.7 out of 10, but during the pandemic, this indicator almost didn't change. It changed by 1/10 of a point. So it pretty much stays the same. And approximately 1 out of 4 NGOs do not use digital technologies for communications at all. For the digital workplace variable, the score rose by 0.5 point, and this is the most significant increase among the indicators. And this increase is not really surprising, given that during the pandemic, NGOs were forced to organize their work remotely due to the pandemic restrictions. Nevertheless, the score is still not really high. The average value of the variable digital presence increased almost by 0.5 point, by 0.4 points. Moreover, only 16% of NGOs do not have any internet presence, digital presence, and this is the lowest proportion of 0 values among all 4 sub-indices. So it is safe to assume that getting some online presence is like the first step in the digitalization of the nonprofit organizations. And the lowest result is consistently shown by the variable digital fundraising. The average score is less than 0.8. And most NGOs, like 70%, do not use any of the available digital tools at all to raise funds. The score may be low due to the fact that not all NGOs use private funding. They prefer other sources of funding like public or membership fees. Nevertheless, our data also shows that 40% of NGOs attract private donations and only 30% of them use digital fundraising tools. So there is a discrepancy about 10% and the potential for growth still remains. And let us look at the big picture once again. Based on how actively NGOs used digital technologies in 2019, we have identified the 5 clusters from digital outsiders that do not use digital technologies at all to the digital leaders. You can see these clusters on the slide. During the pandemic, the overall share of advanced users and digital leaders increased by 6 percentage points, while the number of digital outsiders and lagging behind stays almost the same. Thus, the average range of digital tools of NGOs has become somewhat wider, and the share of organizations that use a wide variety of technologies has increased, but at the same time, the share of those who have not yet implemented digital technologies did not decrease as well. And this allows us to conclude that digitalization has primarily affected those NGOs that have already used information technology and they improved their digital skills. But these organizations that didn't use digital technologies didn't really introduce them into their activities. And thus, our data, as it was said already, revealed a polarizing effect of the pandemic, widening the gap between the highest level digital capacity cluster and the least digitally capable cluster. So this conclusion leads us to the 2 questions, the theoretical one, what is the threshold of nonprofits digitalization? Well, digitalization cannot be associated with just having a website, using social media, or making online payments. It is the change in the mindset of NGO managers and workers and optimization of their organizational processes. And these aspects of digitalization are yet to be studied. And the second question is practical. What factors and conditions could help reduce this gap in NGO digital capacity and facilitate the transition between digitally least capable to a higher level of competence? And these are some directions for future research that we are looking forward to explore. And this is all from me. Thank you for your attention.
Natalia and Alexandra, thank you for your report. Maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Okay, dear colleagues, thank you very much for an interesting report. My name is Elena Kambakova. I'm also one of the participants of this workshop. I would like to ask you, have you analyzed the professional occupation of respondents who marked the use of digital tools at their workplaces? Do you have any data? What spheres are they working at?
Alexandra, maybe you would answer.
Well, we looked at the spheres of nonprofit organizations that use digital technologies more or less. And at the slide on the screen, you can see that religions organizations do not use digital technologies. while charities use them more often. But we didn't look at the users as people.
Okay, thank you.
Dear colleagues, have you any questions?
I have one, if you don't mind. Natalia, Alexander, thank you for your report. Great results. Lots of NGOs and social enterprises representatives usually blame on the lack of finance, but as I understand you right, fundraising indicator shows the lowest value. So does it mean that digital skills are the great source of additional income? And if it's so, what kind of organizations are on the verge to receive this income? Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. As we mentioned, the pandemic revealed a kind of a polarizing gap between the organization using and not motivated to use the tools. So those using them already, I think they will be still using them more in the fundraising and more inclined to receive, be tapped into various sources of income, while those that are at the other side of the gap might be, receiving less and less as they are as they do not start using the technological tools.
Okay, thank you.
Dear colleagues, let's continue because time limits. Population's involvement in public activities plays a significant role in forming the response of countries to modern social changes. Social dialogue of all actors, public administration, business, and society should be carried out within the social innovation ecosystem. Our next speaker, Director of the International Research Project Office at the University of Deusta and Scientific Director of the European School of Social Innovation, Antonia Cara Gonzalez, will focus on the social innovation ecosystem and its current state. Antonia, will you?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. So nice to listen to all of you. So we have been going from industrial in social innovation and industry, education, NGOs, so the different actors. So that's a part of the ecosystem building. And we have what I'm going to bring today is a process of co-creation with many peers in different sectors and in different countries to think together, to make a reflection, to write a position paper, to be sent to the different policy authorities at European level, but also at other different levels, to talk about what we have called, and let me see if I can put this in the proper manner here so that you see it big. Do you see big now?
Yes.
Yeah, what we have called the social innovation ecosystems for a just transition. We have played a little bit with the words, and we have invented these mosque UTRs. And I'm going to start with an action movie because we thought, okay, we need to reflect, but we need action.
In the name of God and friends, correct?
Wait, I'm going to, sorry for this. I'm going to start the video. Give me a second. I'm going to get the image from the middle because if not, you won't see it. Wait, it will come. Yeah, no.
In the name of God and friends, correct? France, indeed.
Antonia! My sister's honor will not wait a moment longer.
I'll handle this. Antonia. We also protect each other.
One. Let's go.
Well, this is a metaphor. We have seen lots of solidarity and lots of, and the one that we are going to need in the coming months and years after this deep crisis we are living, and the values and the principles that should be behind what the European Commission has called the twin transition that we want to bring to the triple transition, with the social transition in the core of the challenges that we are facing. So I'm going to focus in these three questions: what, why, and how. So the what is addressing the complex societal challenges, and we have very many in different levels, and that's part of the ecosystem building, to be very much contextualized, to understand deeply which are the conditions, which are the problems, the barriers, also the opportunities, the key people and the leaders and leaders to be, so that the change can happen. Why is this imperative need for democratizing innovation? We cannot be losing people that can be entrepreneurs, that can be doing things for the common good and for the progress of humanity. And we need to bridge the deep horizontal and vertical divides. I'm going to talk a little bit later. And the how you have seen in the video. We want to have this triple transition, building transformational and helix social innovation ecosystem through a systemic collaborative approach. That's part of the idea. It's a bit complex, but our world is complex, and we need to change the linear way of seeing innovation to go to a more complex complexity management way of understanding the whole thing. And that's because we have pressing and urgent problems and challenges there. So we have the Sustainable Development Goals in the 2030 Agenda. We have the new framework program that the European Commission is putting in place and is coming out in the coming weeks and just covering from bottom-up ideas in Pillar 1 and Pillar 3 with the European Research Council, but also the Innovation Council, and the collaborative clusters in Pillar 2, covering health, culture, creative and inclusive society, civil security, climate, energy, and mobility challenges. So we have all the challenges around the Green Deal, around sustainability, but also the digital agenda, and we have some challenges that are focused on social issues, but we still see the divide. And we have been talking with the European Commission officers. They say they are trying to collaborate among the different directorate generals, but they have a difficulty to understand how they can bring all these agendas together and to have a discourse that can be understood by anyone, that we need to bring the social transformation to the fore, because if we change the way a society understands that this change should be done, the other things will come. And usually it's the other way around. We are most focused on industrial value chain, the digital divides, etc. But we are not focusing on how to make this social transition happen. So that's the what. The why, I think, is clear. The complex problems need complex solutions, and because the simple answers are easier, but usually they bring us to the cliff. So that's part of the problem, that we need to reinvent and to be creative and to have entrepreneurial mindset, and that's very much aligned with what you were discussing before in relation to the education and capacity building of people. And so we have to take this right complex way, which is usually very bendy and not non-linear, and try to find ways to build these social innovation ecosystems all together. I'm going quick, so because I would like to hear you and to have some discussion, because we have been having fun writing this position paper. It has been very demanding, but the theme for us was, okay, we know the what, we know the why, but how do we do that? And that was a very interesting question. I will go through the 4 key messages that we have put together in this paper. The first one is, and we changed the world several times. The way it is now is courageous, goal-aligned alternatives, and shift to new, although they are not so new, principles of eco-centric instead of egocentric behavior. And we use at the beginning the radical goal alignment just to push for this idea that we need to radically change the way we are doing things, because we are all focused on my own interests. If I'm fine, if I have my salary, if I have my health, if I'm whatever, my wealth, whatever, I'm fine, and I don't care about what's going on there. And what the world is telling us, and not only the planet, but also societal issues, the pandemic, etc., says that if we are not thinking in a radical different way, we are going to have problems, because we don't have a planet B, because we are not going to recover from the crisis, and we are going to leave many people behind us. So how to do that? We are proposing to work from a long-term and shared vision. I put there the Sustainable Development Goals in the image, and try with this idea of the long-term vision, going backwards to make this transition management in a way that we put several landmarks in the process, in the timeline, so that we make gradual progress on these transitions, but all the time with this long-term vision that this common shared agenda is the target that we need to aim to. So that's one of the key issues. So now we see, for example, that for policymakers, the short-term versus long-term vision is a problem. So the second one is the adoption of a complex system mindset, as I was saying before, to build up dynamic, context-sensitive, and holistic approaches. So the thing here is how we can bring these systemic collaborative approaches, that we understand who is in the context, what is their role, what are their capacities, how they can interact with each other, so that we are all working together in this interaction and collaborative endeavor, knowing that it's not only my own interest, so coming back to the previous approach, but to be interacting with each other in this long-term share-oriented agenda. And well, the systemic collaborative approaches, we are doing some interesting things, and I can say that, for example, tomorrow we have a meeting with the Commissioner Gabriel and her cabinet, because last year we had this EU versus virus experiments, the hackathon, the matchathon, with almost 30,000 volunteering people collaborating for weeks to come out with 2,000 innovations. And well, it was amazing, the amount of people that were working together at the same time, and how we were able to organize all these people in operative teams. And now we are going to present tomorrow how this can be done and could be replicated in the future. So let's see how it comes, but it can be done. So we need to use the lessons learned and the examples, the many examples that are out there, and channel for making this happening in the coming years. The following message is the active, share, responsive, and responsible engagement of all of us versus hierarchy as the way we are managing now, that is very vertical many times, as alternative governance and distribution models. And here, what is behind the whole idea is that we have this vertical divide. So we have, if you take an institution, you have all the levels of management. But if you have the government, you have the different levels of management. So that's the vertical divide. And let's see how we can have leadership approach that can bring people together and identify entrepreneurial mindsets and people that can lead the change intra-institutional, but also in the context that the innovation is happening. And the other thing is the horizontal divides, and that's meaning, for example, if I'm talking about the university, then which is I'm in charge of this strategy for institutional change in internationalization of research. You have the different silos for example, the different fields in the faculties. How do we bring people together from different faculties to work together in an interdisciplinary manner, together also with international peers and with local stakeholders, so intersectorial collaboration as well, so that we can make this ecosystem work at the horizontal level as well. So that's enabling spaces, enabling mechanisms, and also having the capacity building for train people that can make the bridge. So who can understand the different interests, the different rhythms, and the different ways of doing things for different type of stakeholders, so that they can understand each other and they can propose win-win situations for all of them. So that's basically what is behind this. And the last one is the igniting the transformative capacity of all forms of collaboration. And here, I think we have transcended already the triple transition. We are now proposing the N-helix collaboration. We already talked in Dortmund, I think it was 2 years ago, Tony, when we were there, in this panel of social innovation ecosystem, that we needed to generate this capillarity of connections between the different levels. So if you see here, we could have the institution with these different units here, and how from the institution we can build the interdisciplinary collaborations with the other units there, and the intersectorial collaboration with other type of actors, and the international collaboration with different type of actors as well in projects or initiatives, etc. So how do we bring these collaborations to a new level so that we can make this happening? So we will publish soon the position paper, the mosque UTRs, where all this is explained. We have there people that are very influential and can have been bringing ideas together, and let's hope it's helpful for all of us and also for our policymakers. So we will send it to you, or maybe send you a summary as you were proposing at the beginning, just to be published in the journal. I think that's all from my side, and I hope I did it in the time. And if you have any question, that would be great.
Antonia, thank you very much for a great, impressive report. Colleagues, you may ask your questions.
Of course I can, if you don't mind. Antonia, great report, a great conceptual work. But I have some kind of controversial question, if you don't mind. You compare, during your research, you show us some comparison between ecocentric and egocentric behavior. Does it mean that you argue to Adam Smith, who said that egocentric behavior creates more value to the society, and it doesn't work in a modern world? I'm so sorry for this question.
No, I think that's appropriate. We don't have the solution because it depends on the context. It depends on the person because there are some persons that have an own interest that is legitimate, and with this own interest can also build common goods. So the idea here is, how do we put the two things to work together? So we need the motivated person, and we all have interest when we do things. But the thing is not to work only for my own interest if I'm harming. So it has to come together. The no harming principle and the no leaving one behind, together with my own interest in making progress, and this is so interesting when we are talking, for example, with the industry sector, that they say, listen, I'm already doing lots of things for society, even though I'm earning money, because I'm investing, so I'm risking my capital, but I'm also promoting employment and promoting development for the region, and the two things come together. So I get richer, but I'm doing also this for society. The idea here is, can we bring also the principles behind that? And that's the importance of the social transformation for the behavior, for the values that we need to convey in this social transformation that needs to come with the other two. I don't know if I have answered to your question.
That's a great answer, but Tony, am I understanding right that this ecocentric behavior is some kind of payment, some kind of charity? So I mean, I can save all this money if I'm let's imagine I'm an entrepreneur, yeah, and I can save some money for my own business, or I can increase employment wages, but during the ecosystem approach, I should or I must spend some money for charity, some invisible charity. Am I right?
Well, I don't know if I understand very well the question, but what I understand you are meaning is that the person that has this ecocentric, that's where you are focusing, right? In the ecocentric, what we mean with this ecocentric is that we have a vision more in the ecosystem more than in the individual, or more in the own interest. So if we are thinking in the ecosystem building, there is a balancing of forces, or a balancing of interests of the different actors. And that's the complexity. How do we manage that in a way that the different actors understand each other in the good manner? For example, there is, and this is something we say in the position paper, there is a lot of sustainability posture. We might think that we are all doing lots of things for the environment because we are not using plastic bags. But if we thought of all the things that we could do if we change our behavior, the eco approach, the ecocentric approach would be having a greater impact than this posture issue, right?
Yeah, but let's. I'm so sorry for that it takes so much time, but let's take into account another example. Let's imagine that I'm again an entrepreneur, and in a situation when I need to use some kind of positive discrimination mechanisms, so I need to hire women on some positions because we have some law to ensure positive discrimination, because we need to ensure some kind of proportion between men and women. But I do not want to hire women. I want to hire really qualified personnel. For instance, I perfectly understand that every woman can be very qualified staff, but still, I need to hire certain women because of some kind of legislation. Does it mean that that's some kind of, I mean, charity? I don't know how can I name it.
I think this is the non-tangible return on investment. So usually we are used to, that's what I understand, but we can discuss it more longer. There are things that cannot be monetarized, so that you don't get the profit or the return in a profit monetary manner. When you have this type of positive policies for certain groups, what I think is this the non-discrimination, or the no one left behind possibility or principle. And of course it's charitable, but that's the way our society should work if we want to have this solidarity and this social innovation ecosystem working for all of us, not for the stronger ones, or not for the wealthier ones, or for the ones that are more lucky. And it was funny because I think 10 days ago I went to an event that they were quoting Harari, the historian, and he said that in this quotation that prehistorical humans didn't make any difference to the animals, because they were behaving in the same manner. It was instincts, they were surviving, they were fighting for life. And it was not until we make some evolution and we work as a group and we work together for the survival of the community that we didn't make a difference. So that's part of that. I don't know. Maybe we can next time we meet in Brussels, we go for a couple of beers and we'll discuss this in depth.
Thank you for the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.
And colleagues, we have one more online question.
Well, if you see my hand, Tony, thank you for great thoughts. I would like to ask two short questions, potentially for long answers. First is I applaud very much your backcasting approach. The question to it would be, what are your experiences if you confront politicians with this approach? A very practical question, because I think this is far from being grasped by politicians. And the second question, what about the relation? Do you think there is a certain relation that could be made useful for your research between the so-called post-industrial values concept and your complex mindset, systems mindset approach?
Mm-hmm.
Did I get it right?
Yeah. Well, more or
make myself understandable.
Well, I'll try to be very practical. In the first one, we are discussing with politicians. They are asking us to write this paper because they see, for example, and just to put it very practical, that whenever they want to make these synergies among programs, they have the silos. That's one thing. So they have to be fighting or negotiating with other directorate generals if we are talking about the European Commission, but also they have these illegibility things. So one thing works with a program and the other one doesn't work in the other program. So even though they should be working together, they cannot work. Or the timeline for the two of them are different. So if you are applying to one, maybe the other program doesn't come until 6 months later. So you cannot work with that. So there is still a lot of synergy building for this policy arena to work together and build the synergies at all the levels. And I won't talk when you have to work with the local and the more general or the global arena, so that you have all these levels to align. So yes, we are working with them. They told us they need this kind of discussion, and we are just giving examples of from the users what's working and what is not working, so that we can give them some hints on how to improve that, although we know it's not easy. For the post-industrial value concepts, for me, the thing is that we need to align the two things. We are coming, or we are entering in a different setting where there are more and more complex issues, and the interaction between humans and machines and transhumanity and all these issues are putting us as human beings in a position that we need to rethink the whole our whole conception of things and our way of understanding innovation in the traditional or conventional way. So yes, it's a must that we need to to have discussions on these issues, and this is something from ESI we will bring in the following seminars in the coming months, because there are many issues there that need to be rethought in a deeper manner if we want to make a radical or courageous change.
Antonia, thank you very much for your opinions, for your answers, and for your discussions with our participants. And we will continue. And our next reporter is Andrei Popov, Senior Researcher of the Vologda Research Center. He will continue the topic of the social innovation ecosystem.
Thank you, Olga. Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be a part of this audience. And today I'd like to share with you some of the results of the project, the ecosystem approach to the development of social innovations in modern Russia, theory and practice, funded by a Russian Foundation for Basic Research from 2018 to 2020. Wait a second. It doesn't work for some reason. Oh, okay. Thank you. The general purpose of the project was to work out the directions and tools for developing social innovations in Russia based on the ecosystem approach. The list of main tasks you can see on the slide. And it's important to know that a part of the research team had experience in social innovation acquired from SI Drive project, and it gave us a great impulse to the work. Just a few words about the relevance of the study in the context of deep-rooted systemic problems and the emergence of new challenges. The global community is looking for effective ways to overcome them. And as practice shows, the traditional methods of state and market regulations are not always be able to respond to ongoing changes. In this regard, researchers note a shift in the innovation paradigm towards social innovation, since it is assumed that it's not possible to achieve a radically improvement of the situation solely through technological innovations. In this study, we have used a broad interpretation of social innovation as new ideas that meet social needs, create social relationships, and form new collaborations. Within this approach, social innovation can be a new product, service, process, market, organizational form, business model, or a combination of them. It's important to emphasize that in the national scientific discourse, the issues of studying social innovations were reflected in the works of scientists of the Soviet period. They understood social innovations as qualitatively new formations, structures, mechanisms of social production, society as a whole, or its subsystems. Typically, examples of such projects were socialist competition, people's volunteer squads, public associations of disabled people, etc. The period of social and economic shocks at the end of the 20th century is characterized by foreign interest in social innovations and the crisis of social sciences in the post-Soviet area as a whole. Current focus on the topic of social innovation in Russia is associated with many unresolved systemic challenges and changes in the existing relationship between the government and the society in the context of ensuring the implementation of social rights. In particular, the 2008 crisis worsened existing problems, which led to the increase of interest in the phenomenon in research and practice. At the same time, many existing problems cannot be solved with the efforts of a single actor, so intersectoral cooperation becomes a necessity. This aspect is of key importance for development of social innovation. This discussion about possibilities of involving various actors in the innovation process to overcome acute social challenges became widespread. In this course of this discussion, different options of cross-sectoral collaboration are considered, from pairwise linear models to large-scale network structures. At the same time, special attention is paid to the formation of a favorable environment for the development of social innovations, as Antonia already said, which creates incentives for mutually beneficial cooperation similar to natural ecosystems. Our vision of social innovation ecosystem is summarized on the slide. The research was based on the data of international research organizations, scientific publication on the research topic. Moreover, we carried out a variety of sociological studies, an expert survey, in-depth interviews, and a mass survey of the population in the region of the northern Western Federal District of Russia. So, to the results. First of all, we have used the economic survey to assess conditions for development of social innovations in Russia. Social innovation index is measured on a scale from 0 to 100 points and includes 4 pillars: policy and institutional framework, financing, entrepreneurship, and society. It is determined that Russia is inferior not only to the leaders of the rating, but also to outsiders among the European Union countries. This applies to both the integral characteristic and its components. The only exception is the policy institutional framework, 20th rank, and in contrast, business values and civil society development are the worst, 41st and 43rd places respectively. Primarily based on the secondary analysis of the data, we identified the main features of the development of social innovation in Russia. Top-down development of social innovation. Social innovation is mainly related to the concept of social entrepreneurship. Innovative practices are disseminated in conditions of the lack of an appropriate legal framework. Development of the non-profit sector encourage interest in social innovation and rapid infrastructure development. So we determined that the emerging Russian ecosystem of social innovation can be classified as a mixed type, since it has the characteristic of both Anglo-Saxon, continental, and Eastern Europe ecosystems. As said earlier, one of the most common ways of implementing social innovation is social entrepreneurship, which is aimed at meeting social needs by combining social and economic goals, where priority is given to the former. Typically, in the most developed countries, social entrepreneurship receives strong support and is considered by state structures as a factor of increasing people's involvement in solving local problems. In Russia, attention to the ideas of social entrepreneurship arose largely in connection with the activities of non-profit organizations and the need for the development of civil society. The government has undertaken a number of initiatives aimed at supporting these structures. However, NPOs are gradually being excluded from the discourse of social entrepreneurship due to the differences in legal regulation and orientation towards understanding social entrepreneurship as small and medium-sized businesses. According to the Thomson Reuters Foundation research, the most favorable conditions for the development of social entrepreneurship are created in Canada, Australia, France, Belgium, and the list in Mexico, Turkey, and Japan. Russia ranks 23rd in the overall rating, improving its position compared to 2016 by 8 places. The worst situation is with the involvement of employees with the necessary knowledge, the sale of goods and services to businesses, the conditions for the development of social enterprises. On the contrary, the main drivers are the ability of social entrepreneurs to earn a living through the activities, government support, and gender equality, which allows women to realize their potential in social entrepreneurship. Of great concern is the relatively low involvement of Russian youth in social entrepreneurship, as well as the role of social enterprises in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The data of conducted expert survey indicate that the main drivers of the development of the social innovation ecosystems are favorable regulatory environment, well-adjusted interaction between actors, the need to solve social problems, and resource factors. In contrast, underdevelopment of ties between actors, low social activity of the population, insufficient governmental support, a lack of specialists, legislative restrictions, and the ability to make a profit were more often indicated as the main barriers. During in-depth interviews, social innovators themselves noted as key drivers of the development of social innovations the presence of an idea and desire to help people. Some quotes, if you do not mind. I want to go and change my life for the better, and the universe helps, leads. Support from close people and partners. I am like a locomotive, but there is very strong support from team. No one is without it, as well as without volunteers who do all this. The availability of different types of resources, experience, etc. As barriers of implementation, social innovators named the following: lack of primaries and technical means. It's very difficult with the primaries in the city. It's necessary that the first floor be accessible, and very often they offer basements, but you cannot go down with children to the basement due to the norms. Lack of assistance from the authorities. Until today, communications was more negative. We received a subsidy, but then this bureaucracy ruffled our nerves. Low level of interaction between stakeholders. We particularly do not interact, but we want. Lack of funding and the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities. Great example, I guess. I applied for a grant to a business incubator. There I refused. Then I took part in the project Mom Entrepreneur, where I didn't receive a grant either. When faced with a bank, everyone wanted to give a collateral loan, but I have nothing to pledge. The data of the expert survey showed that despite the heterogeneity of the perception of social innovation, the attitude towards it's predominantly positive, as shown in the first 3 rows of the table. Some skepticism is observed only among representatives of private business. The perception by various actors of their role in the development of social innovations is of great interest. Scientific and educational organizations mainly provide assistance in conducting research in this area and participate in project activities. The role of business is to provide finance assistance, infrastructure, and technological support for innovation. In turn, the authorities and state structures provide the widest range of various forms of support. The study reveals that the main initiators of the creation and implementation of social innovations are social entrepreneurs and representatives of civil society structures. The outsiders here are private business and scientific and educational organizations. The study assessed the intersectoral interaction on the development of social innovation. For this, in the framework of the expert survey, we use the question, please rate the level of interaction between actor N and actor M on the development of social innovations in your region. The final indicator takes value from 0 to 1, and for greater clarity, we identified 3 levels of interaction: low, medium, and high. The results show that the tightness of connection between each of the participants can only be characterized as medium. As a rule, the greatest problems arise in establishing relations with the business community, whose representatives also point to the underdevelopment of intersectoral ties. Most experts also drew attention to the complexity of cooperation with scientific and educational organizations due to the lack of clear understanding of their role in the development of social innovations. Among the main problems in the field of interactions, experts named the lack of information, both about social innovation, about the opportunities and needs of various parties, as well as the lack of a single platform for interaction, distrust and conflict of interest, insufficient funding, imperfect legislation, etc. In addition, business representatives noted the skepticism towards social innovation and the lack of clear economic benefits for them. Experts from the number of scientific and educational organizations highlighted the lack of motivation to participate in projects and the workload of the main activity. Representatives of government bodies identified as problems of interaction the overregulated nature of many procedures. Civil society and social entrepreneurs named low social responsibility and low activity of the population. In conclusion, based on the wealth of empirical evidence, we proposed directions and instruments of state policy for the development of social innovation ecosystems in Russia, from registration of the regulatory status of social innovation and social entrepreneurship to development of educational programs in the field of social innovation and social entrepreneurship. All research results were published in scientific journal. The list of the main articles is presented on the slide, but moreover, we have prepared a brochure opportunities and threats for the development of social innovations in Russia, containing practical recommendations for authorities on the development of the social innovation ecosystem at the national and the regional level, and the textbook, Social Innovations Theory and Practice, for a special course on social innovation for students. We hope that these publications, without nice covers for a current moment, will contribute to the development of social innovation in the country. Well, that's all for me. Thank you for your attention.
Andrei, thank you very much for your report and your fundamental results. Dear colleagues, any questions?
Maybe one question from my side. Thank you very much for this overview. One remark is that in the SI Drive projects in a lot of countries, we realized that there is a close, astonishingly, there was a close relation of companies supporting social innovation from a corporate social responsibility perspective, etc., and from a regional responsibility perspective. So that is seems to be a bit different here. My feeling is that this is also, let's say, could be also an effect of the top-down and bottom-up movement. Could you say something, because in Germany we are now setting up this year a new program for grassroots social innovations to foster them, etc. Is bottom-up a topic in Russia? Is it supported in a way?
Thank you, Tony, for the question. Of course, that's only my point of view, but I'm sure that all the bottom-up initiatives in Russia are rise due to the unresolved problems. And that's the main reason why citizens want to change something, because if we do not see any changes, we should do something with our own strengths. But of course, the authorities try to support bottom-up movement. Unfortunately, the main movement is all about technological innovations, but still some of the initiatives, and one of the latest is about some changes in federal law to register social enterprises and social entrepreneurs. It gives some kind of impulse to develop of social innovations in Russia. But of course, it's all about certain sectors that interested, first of all, for where all the major part of interest are all about government. I mean, if this sector is beyond interest, governmental interest, of course, it's not so easy to receive some support. So I'm sure that the main reason to develop bottom-up movement in Russia is all about unresolved problems. So that's my opinion. Thank you, Tony.
I have a question too. Thank you for your report. And I have heard about the social entrepreneurship problem. Where did you get information?
What kind of information? Excuse me.
Social entrepreneurship problems. It seems like surveys about the financing problems, supporting. And where did you get that information? Maybe you made surveys in Russia.
Yep, I got it. First of all, we to understand the position of our country in global scale, we have used Thomson Reuters Thomson Reuters Foundation reports first, but then we continue our investigation with official statistics, first mainly about NGO, about registered social enterprises in Russia. That's its last year initiative. So we can count the amount of social enterprises in Russia in 2020, for instance. And then we carried out expert survey and in-depth interview. So on the one hand, we focus on external points of view on social entrepreneurship in particular, but on the other hand, we asked social innovators, where social entrepreneurs were the main part, about the current situation in this sphere. So this is a really comprehensive approach. So we used international statistics, official statistics, and our empirical data that we collected in the northwestern district of the Russian Federation, 10 regions of our country. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And we have one more question in our chat from our colleague from Bashkortostan. Andrei, what do you mean by threats of innovation?
I really wanted to continue this discussion on the discussion topic because maybe Antonia, Cara remember my fears about the future of social innovations, because I'm frightened about this future, because I see that in our country, maybe I wrong, but still I see that the government try to shift social responsibilities to the citizens. And I really worried about this situation. Of course, that's this movement provide through the legal mechanisms. I mean, private public partnership and so on, or some mechanism on speaking about social services. But still, I see this movement. I really frightened about the future of social innovation, particularly in Russia. I know that some foreign colleagues from European Union always argued with me, because they sure that civil society will not provide these negative changes and stop government if the authorities decide to shift these responsibilities. But still, in our country, I'm really frightened. Thank you, Gonzalez.
Can I may say something on this?
Of course, Tonya, please.
Okay, we have been discussing a lot on this issue, especially because it was very, very important. And what the conclusion we came to was to say that every person in the world, no matter the age, the position, or the condition, has a responsibility. Especially those ones that has a delegated responsibility from citizens. So I think here is a matter of raising awareness or pushing forward to see that each of us needs to move from this posture thing that I'm doing already something, because we are not doing enough, and we are not doing enough quick enough to revert the situation. And all of us, each of us, since children to elderly, from employers to employees or entrepreneurs or whoever we are, we have a responsibility. And I think we have to pass that message very clear.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for this discussion. And we will continue. Another study showing the impact of new technologies on the society will be presented by Michael Kalgruber, senior researcher at the Social Research Center at the TU Dortmund University.
Okay, thank you for this kind introduction. I try to share my screen. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we see.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to...
Michael, it's not in presentation mode.
Sorry. Huh. Okay. Better?
Okay, everything is okay.
Tony, is it okay now?
Yes, everything's
okay. Fine. Yeah, thank you. I'm a colleague of Antonia Schröder and therefore working in similar research fields. And thank you for the opportunity to present here some findings on the impact of Industry 4.0 on society. And I will do this from the perspective of the project Beyond 4.0, which deals with the socioeconomic impact of digitalization. And impact on society, we are understanding in terms of the impact on jobs, on employability, and especially on inclusiveness of vulnerable groups, and which skills are needed, have to be provided by that systems and so on to keep up with the changes of the digital transformation. So, okay, the project is not only on dealing with the effects on jobs and on the skills to keep the job, but also dealing with the consequences on tax systems and welfare systems, how to gain taxes, how to keep up the welfare systems in case of decreasing jobs due to digital transformation. And regarding the effect on employment, many authors are expecting significantly decreasing job numbers, but we rely on 4 scenarios developed by a colleague of us here in the Institute. And one of these scenarios is the substitution of work. This is what is the most frightening scenario, that people are replaced by robots, by artificial intelligence, and so on, and which could lead to significant unemployment. The second scenario is that there might emerge new jobs or might lead to increasing job numbers, especially in the group of high-skilled people, and also in a moderate way for the lower skilled people. But the real losers of digitalization might be the middle skilled people with a high share of routine tasks that could be replaced by artificial intelligence, for instance, or other digital tools. The third scenario is the upgrading of work. That means that the routine tasks are replaced by digital tools, but the remaining tasks are leading to higher quality jobs for the people who are performing those tasks and jobs. And the last scenario is that one of crowd working. This is not so relevant in terms of job numbers, but in terms of working conditions, as crowd working, the working in the platform economy, increasingly blurs the boundaries between spare time and working time. And it's also an impact to be mentioned on wages and so on. So these are the potential scenarios we see with regard to employment. And from our point of view, from the point of view of the Beyond 4.0 project, skills are key for dealing with those challenges, to tackle the challenges of digital transformation. And we found, to keep it very short here, that there are some challenges and opportunities on the one hand, and we recommend some actions on the other hand. One of the opportunities is that there are explicit EU policies related to inclusive growth, inclusive strategies of companies. That means digitalization should nobody leave behind. And this risk is especially vital for the vulnerable groups. And as significant changes of jobs and occupations are to be expected from digitalization, we found that upskilling and reskilling is really necessary to respond to the changing skill demands. The tasks are changing, the jobs are changing, new occupations are emerging, and in total, they raise changing skill requirements that have to be responded by education and training providers. We found that digitalization provides new opportunities. Nowadays, there is wide access to digital learning resources, so learners and students can learn independently from space and time, and can have access to a huge amount of learning devices and learning resources. And this was especially important, and is it still, during the COVID-19 crisis. Distant learning is very important now, and those digital tools provide excellent opportunities. But on the other hand, there are also challenges of digital and social exclusion. This is explicitly valid for the vulnerable groups who have no or limited access to digital devices and to fast internet connections. And they are also lacking the digital skills to make really use of digital tools, of digital learning resources. And we have to be aware of the risk that digitalization might increase the risk of exclusion, especially for people who have a family background that does not foster ambitions of their children to be successful in their job and to learn higher skilled occupations. So these are the challenges and opportunities to conclude very shortly. And most recommendations are related to the skilled supply side. It is addressed to the vet systems that they have to be more responsive to the labor markets. They have to strengthen their capacities to be more responsive, to be more flexible. At least in Germany, we identified several statements of interviewees who told us that apprentices are learning professional skills, maybe for key accounting and balance sheets and so on, but they never learn to deal with Excel and other software tools during their education. So this is one recommendation. The vet systems have to become more responsive. But this is not the whole truth. It's not only about the skill providers to change, but it's also the demand side, the employers that have to be addressed. To include, for instance, older worker, those companies have to provide appropriate working conditions, working practices, hiring practices to include vulnerable groups in their processes. So it's a joint responsibility of both, of the employers and also the formal vet systems. And from our point of view, skills are key to tackle these challenges and to make use of the digitalization. And we develop a categorization of skills which are necessary to meet these requirements. And considering those needed skills for future work, it's by far not only digital skills that are needed in terms of basic, moderate, and advanced digital skills. We found many publications and interview statements, including sayings about that personal skills, the attitude of people is very important, adaptiveness to changes, but also social skills. There is an increased need for communication, for collaboration. So also these skills are really needed. And last but not least, methodological skills, problem solving skills are really needed, making use of digital tools and also making use of the professional skills. And this is often neglected in the digital transformation, that also professional skills play a vital role, because there is a new combination required of digital skills and professional skills. And this is the whole picture of skills people have to develop to deal with the challenges of digital transformation. And to make this a little bit more detailed, I would like to show you this slide. We have analyzed the situation in a regional ecosystem. And in this case, it is the logistics ecosystem here in the region of Dortmund and close cities. And we have assigned the different statements of interviewees to this picture. You might recognize it as a SWOT picture. And what we could find is on the upper half of the picture, you find the strength in terms of there is a high R&D competence. There is our different research institutions with a very high reputation, and they are really forerunners for digital solutions, such as artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and so on. So in technological terms, the region is really the pioneer, and it provides really opportunities in terms of new occupations and new employment in these occupations and to make use of that in startups and logistics. But on the other hand, it's nearly the whole half of the picture at the bottom. There is everything on skills. And what we find here is that there is a shortage of skilled workers that are really needed for the digital transformation. And we have a high share of low-skilled people, especially working in the warehouse logistics and also parcel delivery. So there is a high share of these low skilled people with twofold disadvantages. On one hand, they are really threatened by the high automation potential for those workers. They have a high routine share of their task, so they are really threatened by automation. On the other hand, there is a low readiness for further education of those people, both by the people themselves and also by the companies who do not want to invest in those people who are not really employed for a longer time. So it's for our region and this ecosystem, it's really a challenge to develop those low-skilled people into a direction of higher skilled jobs that are really needed in the future. And despite the fact that digitalization provides some opportunities, for instance, Pick by Voice is a digital tool that enables migrants to get employed in companies because those tools are providing advices for the people in their own language. But the special situation in that ecosystem is that digital transformation threatens the low-skilled jobs here. And these jobs are really providing opportunities for the vulnerable groups I spoke of in previous slides here. And many people are working at Amazon and so on that are migrants, long-term unemployed people. And these jobs are really disappearing during the digital transformation. And this is really a challenge for our region here, at least in case of the logistics sector. Thank you for your attention.
Michael, thank you very much for report and such impressive results. Colleagues, maybe one or two short questions.
Okay, if no one wants to ask, I always have a question. Two short questions. First, I really like this question, but do you really believe in technological unemployment? That's the first question. And the second one, more complex. What do you think about the idea that currently we should speak about sets of competencies, not occupations? And it means that we should realize great reforms in educational systems. And what kind of education do you think it will be? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for the question. Do I believe in technological unemployment? It depends. There is an approach of occupational churn, and that means that probably more jobs will be emerging than will be decreasing by technological transformation. So in these terms, there will be no technological unemployment, but the new jobs do require other skills than the vanishing jobs. That is one issue. The other issue is the question, do the new jobs emerge in the same region as the decreasing jobs has vanished? And also there is a question in times. So the jobs might be decreasing in the near future, but the new jobs might be emerging more in the midterm future. So in general, balancing the decreasing and increasing jobs, there might be no unemployment. But despite this general treatment, there are nevertheless many risks, especially if you have a perspective on a certain region, such as here in the regional ecosystem in the rural area. And another answer related to this question is there are very different estimations on how many jobs might be threatened, starting with Frey Osborne with 47% and moving on to OECD and so on. The estimations are very, very different. But even if I cannot estimate the balance of decreasing and increasing jobs, there are the risks I have already described. And related to the second question, what kind of education is needed? My impression is there are many measures, policies, initiatives on a system level, on the level of national vet systems and general approaches, how education 4.0 might look like. But on the other hand, there are many measures on classroom level and workplace level, and there are individual measures of teachers, of schools, and so on. And those both levels seem to be nearly unconnected. And we need an intermediary level just connecting those both levels. And such as regional skill ecosystems might be a solution to connect these levels. On the other hand, there are already many measures to make the vet systems more responsive, and they are very different across EU member countries. For instance, Finland has totally reformed its vet system to make it more work-based, to focus it more on individual learners. And on the contrary, in Germany, there are many pilot projects, and I have some doubts regarding the impact of these many pilot projects. And we are really missing the monitoring to track what is really achieved by the measures that are already taken in terms of VET 4.0 and Education 4.0.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michael. And we are going to continue. Our next speakers from the Institute of the Economics of the Ural branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Ksenia Kazinska and Anna Veritenikova, will introduce the study devoted to the influence of the formal institutional environment on the development of social entrepreneurship.
Just a moment, I will open my presentation. Dear colleagues, I am very glad to greet you all, and I am also grateful for the opportunity to present the results of our study. And my colleague Ksenia and I represent the Institute of Economics of Europe branch of Russian Academy of Science in Yekaterinburg. And our interest in this theme lies at the intersection of institutional economics and social entrepreneurship. The aim of our study was to determine the influence of the formal institutional environment on the development of social entrepreneurship. And this preposition, we are going to show results of two studies. The first one was carried out in 2018 and dedicated to the developed countries. And the second part has been done in this year for research of social entrepreneurship in Russian regions. Pioneers in the social entrepreneurship was Europe and the USA. Studies of European and American experience formed the basis for research schools in this area. These both traditions were formed against the crisis of the 1970s, and however, ways how to solve social problems were different. The Innovation School focuses on social entrepreneurs as individuals who tackle social problems and innovatively meet social needs. This school is focused on creating new and more effective ways to solve social problems. Within the social enterprise schools, the main object of research is organization engaged in entrepreneurial activity and receiving income in the process of implementing a social mission. According to this research, social-oriented activities are embedded in the traditional commercial entrepreneurship. Within the MS approach, social entrepreneurs can carry out their activities in the form of association, cooperatives, mutual organization, and foundation. The Europe School allows for some distribution of profit within cooperatives. The goods and services produced in UK approach can be both related and not related with the primary mission of social-oriented organization. In Russia, the emergence of institutionalization of social entrepreneurship began only in the early 2000s, and the introduction of this phenomenon took place in 2007 when the Fund of Regional Social Programs, Our Future, was created. And the federal law that consolidated the concept of this phenomenon under consideration was adopted only in July 2019. So the concept of social entrepreneurship in Russia belongs to the European tradition and doesn't imply innovation. In the study, we defined how the formal institutional environment affects the development of this type of activity. We examined the level of developed countries and in the first part, and regions of Russia in the second part. In the first part, we formulated 4 hypotheses that were 2 of which were alternative. To assess the institutional environment, we used factors such as property rights institutions, government activism, investment freedom, and level of economic development. To measure the level of social entrepreneurship, we used the share of the population participating in the social entrepreneurship at the operational stage of the organization development, and the source of data is global entrepreneurship monitoring. And as a result, we obtain a regression model that shows that the most significant factor of this institutional environment for the development of this kind of activity are the level of economic development and investment freedom. So only hypotheses 4 and 5 were confirmed. And then Ksenia will go on.
Yes, I tell some part about Russia, experience in Russia. As we mentioned above, we have a time lag between Europe and Russia, approximately 20 years. And just in 2019, we had a law about social entrepreneurship. And in 2020, we got the first statistical information about amount of social entrepreneurship organization. And nowadays, it's approximately 1,500 of organization devoted to social entrepreneurship. It's interesting that in different regions in Russia, we have unevenly amount of organization. Of course, the most developed with social entrepreneurship region, it's Moscow region, Leningrad region. And we're interested to know what's exactly playing role in developing social entrepreneurship in Russia. So we, as independent variables, we used standard of living in the region. Anna, please back on the slide before. Slide. Thank you. And presence of programs supporting social entrepreneurship. We used websites of different regions of supporting business and found there is or there are not information about social entrepreneurship and supporting information. We also interested in institutional voice in the social sphere. We thought that if in a region there is not enough amount spending for social sphere, social development should be more developed in that region. There more is in country level, we used investment region activeness and attractiveness. So the next, please. And we got a model where we see that we have influence of average wages in the region and presence or absence a program of social entrepreneurship supporting in that region. In a word, it means that that wealthy segments of society have a wish to support vulnerable segments of population. And we have region most social and economic developed, like central regions where social entrepreneurship developed in the high level. Next, please, Anna. Totally, we could say about the next finding. As I told before, that we have a high level of social entrepreneurship in the socially and economic developed regions. And supporting institutional play much more role in a region level than on a country level, for example. And investment on the social sphere don't stimulate the development of social entrepreneurship activity. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ksenia and Anna, for your report on your findings. Maybe one or two short questions. And colleagues, I would like to pay your attention that we have a discussion in chat. And if you want, you may leave your questions for our speakers there. And speakers, if you have a question, will you please answer it in chat? And any questions to Ksenia or Anna?
Yep, I have one. I'm really thank you. First of all, thank you, Anna, Ksenia, for the report. great results. I'm really curious about one of the last findings that investment in social sphere do not encourage the amount of social enterprises. Do you know why? I'm really curious. Thank you.
Yes, we thought about it, and we were surprised too, because we checked it on the country level. We used different countries and spending for social sphere on the countries, and we didn't have results as well in regions. So it means that the wish to help other people and solve social problems up from people inside, from people's society.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. We will continue. Nowadays, innovation is a social challenge, affect every sphere. Deputy Head of the Editorial Department, Elena Kabakova, will present some results regarding workplace innovation.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to mention that I'm a starting researcher. For this reason, I want to express my appreciation to the organizers for the opportunity to take part in this international research workshop devoted to social innovation issues. I'm honored to be a participant of this event along with outstanding foreign and Russian scientists. Today, I'm going to present the result of our research conducted under the guidance of my research supervisor, Galina Leonidova, related to innovation in social and labor sphere, case study of the workplace of the comprehensive schools teacher. To begin with, we would like to thank the European School of Social Innovation, at the behest of which the Vologda Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences started the research on the topic under consideration. It is worth mentioning that despite the active development of workplace innovation issues among foreign scientists, for Russia these issues remain quite new and relevant. The topic of workplace innovation has drawn our attention because it was unusual and unexplored for the Russian reality. Generally speaking, it was a challenge for us to start conducting research in that area. Taking into account that a person spends a significant part of his life at the workplace, organization of its working environment becomes the key component that influences the employee's efficiency of labor activity. Due to this, the implementation of workplace innovation gained its relevance because workplace innovation affects changes in the enterprise's activity, employees' roles, organizational structure, corporate culture and climate, behavior, labor relations, trust, and other areas. The entry of world economies into a new technological era, the emergence of more modern forms of labor organization caused changes in the requirements for professional qualities and competencies of workers. In the new business environment, it is important to create a working space in which employees develop their knowledge and experience in the best possible way and fully reveal their creative potential. Anyway, all these trends affect the educational sphere at all its levels. In the Russian education system, the innovation process is associated with its radical modernization in the early 21st century. In this context, the tasks that the education sphere faces present new requirements to both the teacher's profession and to the entire spectrum of the school's educational space, starting from the workplace and the quality of teaching staff and ending with fundamentally new means of organizing the educational process, creation of innovative educational environment, as well as digitalization of educational processes and using digital tools in the teacher's work. One of the key points that researchers pay attention to is the readiness of teachers and the teaching staff of educational institutions to innovation and innovative activity. The workplace of a teacher, one of the main actors of the educational sphere, is a working space that should ensure the fulfillment of educational goals. The issue of providing the educational process through new technologies remains relevant. Therefore, the teacher's workplace should be equipped with modern and necessary basic and auxiliary means. Within the study, we consider a workplace innovation as novelties covering technological and social directions having a positive socio-economic effect, which displays in high labor productivity and increased opportunities for creative self-realization of workers. Although the teacher's workplace is experiencing trends in virtualization, its physical reality remains in high demand, even with the spread of distance learning. At the same time, the traditional idea of the school's teacher's workplace not long ago included a small list of its basic components: a desk, a chair, and a blackboard. With the appearance of information technologies, the demands have increased. The teacher's workspace should involve a place for a computer, a printer, a multimedia projector, and a blackboard should have access to the internet. In order to conduct appropriate lessons at school, as well as possible lessons in a distant mode, a webcam and a projection screen are necessary. As for the lessons related to science, digital microscopes, and other components of a digital natural science laboratory are required. Today, the teacher's workplace becomes an automated workplace, a kind of teacher's working tool capable of significantly increasing the efficiency of teachers' work through technologization. Thus, the aim of our study is to analyze the innovative transformations of the social and labor sphere using the school educational space as the example, in particular the workplace of a teacher, one of the main actors in the educational process, as well as to evaluate the process of implementing innovation into the educational sphere and the impact of innovative transformations on the professional state of teachers. Within the conducted research, we have revealed that there is a request for an innovative workplace among employees working in the sphere of school education. Moreover, we have developed the methodological tools for exploring workplace innovation and assess the impact of workplace innovation on the economy and labor efficiency. The results of a sociological survey of teachers from the comprehensive schools of the Vologda Oblast, conducted by the Vologda Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences in April-May 2020, via Google Forms, have become the information base of the study. 272 respondents took part in the survey. The detailed information about respondents you can see on the slide. Conclusions and statements about the innovativeness of teachers' workplaces are based on the specially developed block of questionnaire questions. You can see the questions on the next slide. The results of the sociological survey of teachers from the comprehensive schools of the Vologda Oblast have shown that teachers perceive innovations in the field of education mainly as two vectors. On the one hand, 65% of respondents mentioned directly pedagogical innovation and innovative practices. On the other hand, 64% of survey participants mark technological innovations. Distance learning is considered the least innovative practice, which is most likely due to the already established system of using such forms of work in its practice. As we see from the data presented in table, teachers are quite unanimous in their answers, and it is worth mentioning that their opinion doesn't depend on working experience. According to the estimates of teachers, educational organizations implement innovations. 52% of respondents note positive movements in this direction. Moreover, the most activity of innovative implementations is observed in urban schools. A low share of such activity is marked by 39% of respondents. The process is less active in rural areas. At the same time, the teacher should not stay away from modern trends and should keep up with the times, and what is even better, be ahead of the innovation that students already have got. For this, it is necessary to create appropriate conditions, especially regarding the innovativeness of their workspace and workplace. The results of the sociological survey of teachers from the comprehensive schools of the Vologda Oblast have shown that only about 1/3 of teachers consider their workplace innovative. The prevailing answer is no, which comprises 63%. At the same time, we observe that there are practically no answers among respondents who find it difficult to answer. Most part of the respondents who gave a positive assessment comprise young teachers and teachers from the industrial center of the Vologda Oblast, Cherepavets. It can be explained by the presence of large sponsors there, such as enterprises Severstal, Fosagra, and others, which is very important for the city's social sphere sectors. What innovation do teachers associate with the teacher's workplace in relation to the organization of general education? First of all, teachers know the use of new advanced technologies and modern equipment of the educational process, 47%. Moreover, in this matter, we observe almost complete unanimity of the teachers community, both among urban and rural teachers and among the beginners and experienced ones. The second most important position is related to the automation of record management, reporting, filling in school diaries and grade books, 33%, and there is no coincidence here. Over the last years, teachers often complained about the excessive work with papers. And the studies show that on average, around 50% of teachers' working time is spent on extra time and paperwork. A smaller number of answers is given to such new practices as the emergence of opportunities for showing pedagogical creativity, which is expressed respectively in pedagogical innovation. However, it should be recognized that according to teachers' responses, schools pay less attention to updating new management methods and tools, new forms of labor incentives, as well as to the formation of new professional values and changes in the organizational culture in schools. We assume that there is a large field for innovative ideas and techniques, forms, and methods of work. The comparison of teachers' responses to the question of understanding innovation in education in general and the assessment of the workplace's innovativeness gives a curious picture. Despite the slight prevalence of answers about pedagogical innovation, respondents rated their workplace more in terms of technological innovation. This fact indicates that the teaching community has a request for both innovation in general and workplace innovation. The group of teachers which mark their workplace as innovative show more satisfaction with working condition, sanitary hygiene environment and workplace safety, and technical equipment of the workplace, which is a direct indication of its innovativeness. This group of teachers also has more positive indicators of social sentiment. 50% of them are in a good mood or in normal even state, and in the opposite group there are just 38 of them. The professional stability of teachers from the first group is also higher. Only 1/5 of respondents expressed the desire to change the job in favor of the one not related to the educational sphere. In the second group, there are 30% of such survey participants. To sum up, the conducted analysis describes the situation regarding the implementation of innovation in the social and labor sphere using the workplace of a professional group of teachers from comprehensive schools as the example. The teachers' responses to questionnaire questions indicate the high demand for innovation in education, the understanding of the innovation's essence, both with regard to pedagogical science and concerning workplace innovation. The revealed assessment of the workplace's innovativeness has shown a lag behind the needs of teachers themselves who are aware of modern realities and from the requirements of time. It should be noted that innovative changes in the working life of pedagogical workers affect their professional well-being. The implementation of innovative practices in the field of education is a relevant and essential phenomenon, especially within the framework of the national project education, which should provide by 2024 the creation of new places in organizations of general education and the solution of other tasks in this area, for example, technological and social ones. The conducted study confirmed the presence of a request for innovation in the teaching community and its demand for the workplace. We would like to know that no research of this kind with regard to the teacher's work and the contribution of the workplace's innovativeness to it has been found at the moment. Therefore, we can only hypothetically assume the presence of positive economic effects from the implementation of innovative practices at the workplaces and in the field of education. Moreover, this effect will lie in the level and quality of education, teaching, and accordingly in improving the education's quality in general. We suppose that this approach not only gives a new view on the development of social innovation in the society, but also can serve as a basis for assessing the role of this tool in the development of Russian regions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Elena, thank you very much for your report. And colleagues, we have a time only for one question.
Thank you, Elena, for the interesting report. I have such question. In defining workplace innovation, you focus on improving labor productivity and opportunities for creative self-realization of workers. In the course of your study, have you found empirical relationships between these categories?
Tatiana, thank you for the question. Yes, we pay our attention to technological improvements and the social ones as well. And as I have already mentioned, the teachers who expressed their opinion and who marked their workplace as innovative, they feel somehow socially more stable and not depending on their working experience, not depending on their location as well. So the professional stability of the teachers who marked their workplaces as innovative was higher, and the respondents did not express the desire to change their jobs to another sphere, not related to the educational one.
Thank you, Lena. And colleagues, our last reporter, Deputy Director of the Vologda Research Center, Evgeny Mazilov, will share his research results concerning the population's perception of new technologies and innovation.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to speak at the first meeting of this scientific and practical workshop. I am convinced that this event will be held constantly for many years. I think it will definitely become a traditional platform for the exchange of views and experience on key issues of socio-economic development of our countries. So you can see the topic of my speech on the slide. I will only say that I have been engaged in the research of the problems of scientific and technological development of Russia and its regions for more than 10 years. Over this time, we have studied many approaches and factors that have a positive and negative impact on scientific and technological development. And it's not a secret that a new round of scientific and technological development has become the ever-accelerating processes of digitalization, avalanche-like progress of the fourth industrial revolution, emergence of the first signs of the fifth industrial revolution. All of this makes us think about a role and a place that are assigned to a human and a person in a fundamentally new coordinate system. As you know, the overall level of scientific and technological development in Russia is lower than in developed countries. According to the analytical agency McKinsey, the level of development of, for example, the level of development of digital services in Russia is significantly lower than in Europe. For example, the share of population making online purchases is only 23% in Russia compared to 55% in Europe. And the share of organization with a website is only 43% compared to 77%. You can see the rest data on the slide. I want to say that the gap shows itself not only among population, but also in production processes. A clearly low level of scientific and technological development is manifested in the labor productivity level. According to this indicator, Russia also lags behind other developed countries. You can see it on the diagram. And the current situation is determined by a variety of objective and subjective factors. However, until recently, we had not considered in detail such factor as willingness of population to perceive and use innovation and fundamentally new products. In this regard, we decided to investigate the population's attitude toward the development and implementation of advanced technological solutions in everyday life. And the hypothesis of the study was that people's conservatism is the one of the key obstacles of low-level innovation in Russia. The information base of our research included the results of a sociological survey of public opinion of the Vologda region's population on their attitude to the latest development. You can see the survey characteristics on this picture. So we answer people what areas of scientific research should be developed in Russian first. And the most popular response was the improvement of economic processes, medicine, and education. At the same time, the strategy of scientific and technological development of Russia prioritizes development of digital production technologies, robotics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and some else. The survey showed population doesn't seek to use latest technologies in their everyday life. Exactly 30% of respondents avoid or fear new technologies, and half of them cease to use of innovation as method of absolutely necessity. A great example is the situation, I think the great example is the situation with software Zoom. I think was largely, many people don't know about this software until the pandemic then besides there are many online services began to gain popularity during this period. The most interesting topics for population are ones related to discoveries in medicine, education, and ecology. As you see, energy and space are the least relevant and rather even uninteresting to people. People are primarily concerned with pressing problems and issues rather than promising or future topics and so on. We also asked what achievements population would like and most importantly would be ready to take advantage of. For more versatile assessment, we offered completely different technological solutions and developments from ones that are already quite widely represented on technology markets to rather futuristic things that may potentially not appear for a long time. And you can see some of these technologies on the following two slides. this one and the other. Most often, the respondents answered that they do not feel the need to use a particular technology or product. This is the most popular option. At the same time, the most acceptable technologies, as you can see, are robot assistant and smart home technologies and some else. As noted earlier, approximately 15% of population had difficulties while choosing an answer, and we think that it's happened because of the lack of understanding of the technologies and because not enough information about it. The majority is ready to abandon such fundamentally new products as cricket cookies, synthesized meat products, self-driving taxis, and neural interfaces. In summary, it's worth nothing that there are no trends in the selection of certain technological products. The main unusual or incomprehensible the product is, the fewer people want to use it. Thus, it should be said that the most population is not ready to experiment to use new, incomprehensible scientific and technological developments and achievements. The issue of scientific ethics and its achievements has always been controversial and ambitious. Therefore, we could not ignore it during our study, during our research. The respondents were asked the question, in your opinion, is it acceptable to use the following technologies? And the results showed that all topics related to changes in genetic, in human genetic, in plant genetic, in animal genetic, and the manipulation with the human body cause a negative reaction among a large share of population. For example, implants of microchips in a brain to improve memory cause a negative reaction of 13% of respondents. Growing meat from cell cultures, which allows us to abandon the use of agricultural livestock, is about 32%. At the same time, in the most cases, people relies to country government as a guarantor of safety and quality of research. An important fact that is about 15 or 25% of respondents had difficulty giving an unambitious answer to the questions asked. It may indicate either the ambiguity to the topics proposed for consideration, or the ignorance of an average Russian population, or of the general situation in the advanced technologies field. To sum up, I will once again focus on the main conclusions during our research. The first, I want to say that the region's population tries to actively take an interest in the results of scientific and technological development. The key topics are ones that remain the closest and the most understandable to an average person. Something like education technologies, medicine technologies, ecology technologies. The second is the new developments and innovative products that are just appearing on the market often cause fear among population that it's not ready to experiment and to try it. And this is a very, I think it's a problem for us. And the third is the key factors of the usage of technologies in everyday lives are the availability of spare funds for purchasing it, lack of need or understanding of technologies, or principle of their operations, for example. And the last conclusion is that the issue of the ethics of research mechanisms and results remained important and largely decisive from the population point of view. Science should not violate the fundamental ethical norms established in society, and the state and government should act as a guarantor of preservation of such principles. This study is not definitive. Subsequently, we plan to correlate the opinion of population with the opinion of company managers on these issues, as well as we can see the trends in the development of science and technology in Russia. Thank you for your attention. I think if there are some questions for me, I can answer it on the chat. Maybe.
Thank you, Evgeny. Dear colleagues, our reports are over. Unfortunately, we have no time to the questions to the last report, but you may comment this report in our conclusion part. Please feel free to join the discussion and share your comments concerning the presented results. Dear colleagues, have you any final remarks?
I guess everyone tired, and we should go into closing remarks and say some words about the upcoming events that will take place in our research center. I guess that's the right choice.
We would like to pay your attention to the upcoming events, which will be held by the Vologda Research Center. You can see the events and dates on the slide. We would kindly ask you to take part in the first All-Russian Forum for Young Researchers of Social Sciences in October 23rd. And in the next International Research Workshop, Contemporary Social Challenges, in the first half of the next year. And Antonius, will you say some words?
Yes, I can do. I can do some closing remarks from my personal view, if you don't mind. So I have a long list of topics which are relevant from my side, as a kind of takeaway from this workshop. But let's go through it very quickly. So we discussed a lot combining technological and social innovation, and in my view, this is very, very relevant for designing the future of, for instance, Industry 5.0, or within the Industry 5.0 approach, by the people, for the people. So we have a choice to develop technological implementation and let's say change our view to a new paradigm, not looking at what is technological possible, but what can technology do to solve our recent and upcoming challenges and problems. And we saw from several presentations, there's an increasing necessity of soft skills, not only digital, but also social, autonomy, capability to manage change, lifelong learning, etc. So technical skills are still relevant, but they let's say they are the basics, and we need more and increasing competences in soft skills to move forward. And as Antonia Cara said, there is a big relevance of ecosystems for joint efforts to solve social societal challenges. So I think it's that to solve the demands of the future, more and more it's relevant not to place it at, let's say, one specific societal group, but to join the forces from the different perspectives, and everyone has to take his part and his responsibility to move things forward in the, as Antonia showed, at the crossroad in the right direction, and not only going the easiest way. Yes, and I think my personal experience is that there is a high potential of bottom-up initiatives, social innovation, ideas, etc., in civil society, but also from the social entrepreneurship perspective. And this is mainly placed at the local level. And but these initiatives, they need the framework to move on. So and also to exchange, etc. I had some discussions with representatives from the European Commission about this, let's say, bottom-up framework development, being local and also European or global, to combine these two perspectives. And last but not least, focusing on education. Sometimes it's forgotten that there is a high need for educating the educators, train the trainers, teach the teachers, because their role and their teaching arrangements are changing a lot, not only because of the of the COVID-19 situation. There is a high demand on online possibilities combined with a workplace, for instance, workplace-based training. And in the end, my last comment, also an experience in the last 1.5 years concerning the COVID situation. It is that we all have to improve our digital skills, and my feeling is that the pandemic forced us to do it more and more. I remember my first Zoom or WebEx meeting with some of our cooperations and partners. They were, let's say it in this way, they were a mess. But you see today that it is working very good, and but to remember, this is has to be improved again and again. So then I will stop now. Thanks.
Thank you, Antonius. And today in our discussion took part our colleagues from Bashkortostan, from High School of Economics. Guzel, Natalia, have you any closing remarks? Natalia, switch on a microphone.
Excuse me. Thank you all. It was very, very important and essential for our future research. I mean, I noted some, very, very exciting directions for future research. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, I agree with other colleagues. The discussions today were very fruitful, and I'm very excited about the next workshops, and I'll be happy to join the next workshops, and I'm very thankful to the experts that gave the answers in the chat. Thank you very much, and congratulations with this
with this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Gonzalez. And Antonia, have you any closing remarks?
Yeah, I want to thank you for the organization, for the initiative, for bringing us together, for all the discussion and all the open questions we already have. So there were many, and that will give us lots of room for further discussion and further clarification on all these issues. I think we are in the right path to come together to discuss them. And yeah, I would thank the ones that proposed my name to be in this first discussion with you, and I'm open to collaborate whenever you need. I will send you the position paper when it's finished and published, and just want to remind to know when the 300 words summary should be sent. I was asking in the chat, but I don't remember the date, so that I can pencil that in the agenda. And now, I have to leave because I'm late for the following meeting, but I wanted to say thank you and bye-bye to all of you.
Antonia, thank you. And we will send all the call for papers to all the participants.
Dear colleagues, I'd like to thank all of you for participation, and I think our workshop was very interesting and fruitful, and the chat discussion shows that the topic of social innovation has high potential for researchers, for both for European and for Russian researchers, and I want all of us to continue our academic communication, and maybe such kind of workshops we can conduct regularly, once or twice a year. And please, if you have any suggestions, we are glad to hear them, and welcome you next time when we decide a bit later. And once again, thank you very much, and you are welcome to Vologda. I hope that this pandemic period will be end, and maybe sometimes we can meet together at our center. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, to improve the organization of our next meeting, will you please fill in the questionnaire? You can find the link in the chat.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to join you next time in Vologda, I think, or maybe in Dortmund or wherever in the world with the European School of Social Innovation. So thanks a lot for organizing this workshop, and all the best. See you later. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you for all the reports. They were amazing, fruitful, impressive results, and I think today we have a really great discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.